Have you ever wondered what was actually taking place in the presidential race between Donald Trump and Joe Biden? Because the media tends to paint a picture right here when reality might be over here. And I wanted to talk about that and my ranking of the candidates here. What is actually going on here? Because we can see this is on Real Clear Politics, which aggregates polling data across the country, national polls. And we get to see here, according to this poll, that Biden's leading every single poll on here. There's 1, 2, 3, there's 6 different polls, and Biden's leading on every single one. But is that actually representative of reality? So, wanted to talk about that by using the 2 largest sites in the planet, Google and YouTube, and the search volume of what people are actually looking for to understand who is actually leading. And I backtested this in 2016 between Clinton and Trump. And this is an accurate predictor in 2016 to who was actually going to win. Even though all the polls in 2016 said Clinton was going to win, if you looked at the 2 largest sites in the planet with millions and millions of data points, you got to see that Trump was leading, both in terms of the search volume on Google and the search volume on YouTube in different time periods that we took a look at. So, with that being said, if this is your first time here, what's good? My name is Sam, and for those of you who are returning, it's good to frickin' see you. All right, let's get into the data. So, this is Real Clear Politics. This is a website that aggregates different national polling data into one spot to kind of give people a supposed more representative picture of what's going on, right? And I like the idea behind it. However, when we take a look down here at the polls, I don't necessarily think that it is super representative. And I'm going to get into some of the more details as we move along, like the research behind some of this stuff that I'm actually talking about here. So this is Rasmussen YouGov. YouGov is with The Economist, CNBC, The Hill, IBD, and Mammoth. Now, these are all supposed very reputable organizations. But when you take a look at this, you can see that the latest poll here from YouGov has 1,250 people. 1,250 people the media reports on as a correct indicator of who is going to actually win. Yes. So that means 1,252 people when there's 330 plus million people in America. There's 1,200 people that are predicting the future, and the media represents this as actual reality. 1,250 people. That's 0.000, wait for it, 0.0 before you get to any data. Not a large sample size. The larger the sample size, the more accurate you're going to get with your data. But this doesn't even touch on the biases that are involved in polling that are clearly documented in many different literature out there. You can go Google that yourself. The way that it's stratified, the way that sampling's done, not just in terms of whether it's on the phone or whether it's a dial-up or a cell phone, or if it's done in the internet, or what sites it's done on the internet and how it's actually captured. And once you stratify the data, depending on the source you use for the stratification, that is actually going to shape how you can interpret the data. So I can stratify it in a different way than you, and then we'll get 2 different results, even though we have the same data pool set to start with. So what is actually taking place? Well, before we get into the YouTube and the Google search volume for each one of these candidates, you can see it over here on the side, I wanted to touch on this. So this is a survey from 2014. So I think this survey is not necessarily super representative. I think that it's actually a little bit more to the one side than the other, as we're about to get into in a second. So this is the ideological placement of each source's audience. So this is like the ranking, effectively, of the different news organizations based upon their political output in terms of conservatism or liberal, right? And you get to see this cluster over here. This is all on the liberal side, right? They're consistently leaning more liberal. And this is 2014, and I think that polarization has even gone much further than that. But you have all these organizations over here. Then you have this one lone organization over here to the right that consistently leans a little more conservative, and that is Fox News. And then these other organizations here and news outlets that most of the people who are watching this probably haven't even heard a lot of these. The Drudge Report, pretty commonly known. Glenn Beck, Sean Hannity, The Blaze, Rush Limbaugh, and Brett Bart. Most of those probably not a lot of people have heard of. But you look over here on the left-hand side, there's an abundance of names and an abundance of recognition, right? The Daily Show, The Guardian. I've never heard Al Jazeera, American, I don't know what that is. NPR, Colbert, New York Times, CNN, MSNBC, NBC, Yahoo, Wall Street Journal, CBS, Google News, Bloomberg, ABC. I mean, like, it just goes on and on and on and on and on and on the left, but we have a handful on the right. And these ones out here, most people probably never heard of. And this is probably even separated a little bit more since then as time goes on. But one of the things that was originally put forth when people were starting to put out like codes of ethics and how news should be reported was a like actual kind of theme that people should stick with in terms of, hey, if you're going to do journalism, this is the journalism code of ethics. So I pulled that up on, this is Journalism Ethics and Standards. This is on Wikipedia. I just wanted to read you a portion of this here where it reads, while various codes, so this is talking about different bodies of or people who are organized together, have things that are very similar, but a lot of them have very similar fundamental pieces from them. While various codes may have some differences, most share common elements. And now these are going to be the common elements here, including the principles of truthfulness, accuracy, objectivity, impartiality, and fairness. So when you take a look at this, I think we both can agree that the news is not trying to hold up the North Star as the truth. They're not trying to say that they're the most accurate representation of reality. They're not trying to be objective, meaning they're sharing both sides of an argument, right? But that's what the code of ethics is, and that's not actually taking place. I think we can both agree on that. Maybe we disagree, but when you look at the data, every piece of information that comes out is manipulated in such a way to garner attention in some capacity, right? And the more negative or sensationalized the piece of information can be twisted as a headline or a picture or an audio clip, and you can cut out the context of what's actually happening, and you take this, 2.5 seconds clip, even though it was a part of a much longer clip, and use that to create a sensationalized headline that is going to drive eyeballs instead of drive the truth, accuracy, objectivity, fairness, right? No, that's not happening today. It's just not happening. They're out there to drive eyeballs. They want attention so that they can get advertising dollars. That's how it works. They're not trying to represent like the greater good. That's a joke. That's actually not reality. And this piece of research is from 3 researchers, I think these are at Cornell University, and it doesn't say where this guy's from, but I think he was from Cornell as well, potentially Ithaca. And this is Peter, Julius, and Jonathan. Understanding the 2016 presidential polls, the hidden Trump support. So as I'm reading through this, I highlighted a section down here where they come through and they mention, I'm gonna read it out here. Some respondents have felt hesitant to declare their support of Trump, they use him, out of fear of being judged negatively, a phenomenon known by psychologists and pollsters as social desirability bias. So what effectively that's saying is the media who is going to sensationalize any piece of information that comes out, whether it is on one side or it is on the other side or is neutral, they're going to take any piece of data, doesn't matter what it is, and manipulate it in such a way to gather attention and eyeballs, right? And through that, create divisiveness. Through that, create more hate. Through that, create more judgment in the world, which isn't there for most people. When you go throughout your day, most people you interact with are good people. But the news isn't going to report on that because they want eyeballs, right? They want the attention. And there's another interesting piece of research out from Pickler out of Harvard, and he has a whole book on it, but how if you look at any kind of indicator relative to, say, the world's overall well-being, in a sense, every single day there's like 100,000 new people who are out of extreme poverty, right? There's the average longevity is creeping up, right? But that's not what's going to get headlines. That's not what's going to polarize things. So that's not what the media reports on. And through creating all this judgment and hate in the world, there's people out there who don't want to state their opinion because they're scared of judgment from other people. That in and of itself is an issue, not being afraid of what other people think about it. But I think that is a very interesting point that needed to be brought up here before we get into the actual data, where we take a look at the YouTube and the Google search volume. The tool I use for this is called Google Trends. Google compiles all of the search volume on YouTube and all of the search volume on Google. As I mentioned, the number 1 and 2 sites in the freaking planet. And what we're going to take a look at is not the search volume anywhere else, but just in the United States. We looked at 3 separate time periods. We looked at the 12-month, the 3-month, and the 1-month on both Google and on YouTube to see who is actually winning. And this is the 3rd time we've done this, so we get to start to kind of get an understanding of the trend of what's going on here, and we're going to get more of this as we move forward. So make sure you press that subscribe button and that bell notification so YouTube will notify you the next time we publish one of these videos, because we're also going to drop tomorrow the website ranking. Now, the website ranking is super interesting because the website ranking, I think, creates more of a clear picture of what is actually going on, because you could argue that search volume is not an indicator of voter preference, right? But even though we look at 2016 and we see that's more accurate, even though we look at these polls from these organizations right here that have 1,500, 933, 1,005 people in them, that's representative of reality, right? We have 1,000 fucking people that people in the news media are reporting as, these 1,000 people say this is what the case is. That must be the case for the entire fucking population of 330 fucking plus million people. Like, that's laughable at best case, and worst case, it's just more of divisiveness. It's more creating judgment. It's more of the hate that's out there that we need to squash every time we see it. So the website actually shows us a very interesting picture, because these are people who are actually going to each one of these candidates' websites. So make sure you press that subscribe button and that bell notification to see who wins that. So this is the YouTube search volume, and this is the, let's go out to the 12 months. This is the web search volume. And as you see here, that there's a pretty big gap in the first, say, 8-9 months of the year. And then around February, must have been when everybody else dropped out, or when the corona started happening and stuff, there was a spike of attention. That was the only time throughout the last 12 months where Joe Biden had more search volume than Donald Trump did on the web. And then similarly, when you come into the past 3 months here, we can see that there was actually 2 periods here where this is the pop of attention. These are this on the annual view, it just shows us 1 data point, but when you come in, that's why we take a look at 3 separate data points here to really get a better understanding of what's happening. But after May here, it looks like the gap has widened, right? We could see the first half of this 90 days, it was much closer in terms of the attention gap here. But and why do you think the search volume is important? Because in 2020 and going forward, attention is the currency. Attention is how you accomplish things. You need to have those eyeballs. Look at the media. We just went through fucking 10 minutes of me describing how the media works. You need the eyeballs. You need that attention to be able to sell your product, to be able to impact a cause, to be able to sell advertising dollars through your news media, right? To get elected for president. You need attention. And if people are going to see you, right, there's also something called a familiarity bias, which is we can touch on in a different video. If you guys want to hear about that, let me know down below in the comment section. But we can see that halfway, about 45 days ago or so, we've had a increase, and the disparity between the two has actually risen. So that's kind of interesting. And on the YouTube, it actually tells a slightly different story here. And this is over the last 30 days. It looks like they're kind of maybe potentially starting to converge. So if you want to see how they're doing next week, make sure you press that subscribe button. But let's quickly go over to the web here. YouTube, and look at the 12 months. Again, similar thing happened on YouTube. However, there was 2 data points. This might have been a debate potentially where he had a spike of attention. And then it looks on YouTube like there's a closer, it doesn't tell the same story as the web. That's why we want to look at both of these data points here. Let's come into the 30-day or the 90-day here, the 3 months, and it tells a much closer picture. However, this looks kind of like the web search, except for it's much more volatile and spikes up and down. And Joe Biden's doing way better on YouTube than he is on the web. It also tells the same story or a very similar story. The volatility is higher on YouTube, however. It does look like after, about 45 days ago, there was, again, a split in attention where Trump has gained more attention. And if you were to regress this period of time here, it would seem that Trump is trending up here. Well, let's take a look at the 30-day period, and then we're going to jump into the results of this research to show you what is actually taking place, not just in terms of what we did today, but also how it's played out over the last 2 weeks since we've done this. This is our 3rd iteration of this. Again, pretty standard. There was a lot of touching right here, but let's just get into the data here, because I think this is the most important part. If we take a look at this here, what this is representing, I'm going to highlight these two, is the total amount of search volume for these 2 candidates. And we can see that Donald Trump had approximately about 74% of all the search volume, and Joe Biden had, and this is on the web, over the 12-month period, had 26%. So about 3 times more, meaning 3 searches to 1 search, 3 searches for Trump for every 1 search of Biden. And it was about similar across the board, but the interesting thing is the trend within the past 3 periods. So it looks like on the macro, in terms of the 12-month, Trump has actually dropped in terms of search volume slightly. So something in the closer amount of data has changed, and Joe Biden's picked up inversely, right? And if we look at the 30-day and the 90-day, right here, the 3-month and the 1 month here, we can see that Trump has dropped in the 30-day, but has increased. And this is where we pick up the trends, because if you have something up and down, that's not really a trend. But what we can see here for Trump in the last 90 days is a consistent trend up. And we saw that when we looked at the data, right? Like, I was like, if you regress this, it's just a statistical term in terms of like trying to understand the least square, like the line, basically, if you were to cut off the tops and bottoms and stuff, you can see that Trump is actually increasing the amount of attention he's getting on the web. Went from 66% of all searches to 67 to 69. That was from the 1st of July to the 8th of July to the 15th of July. Now, obviously, conversely to that, Joe Biden's dropped. He went from 34% to 33% to 30%, 31%. So he is dropping. Let's jump over to YouTube. YouTube dropped for Trump, so it came down and then went back up. So, right, we can't tell a trend there. So obviously, it's going to have the same thing happening for Biden. The interesting thing, this is the best period for Joe Biden, is the 90-day period on the YouTube search volume. Trump went from 61% to 60 to 60, right? He went from higher down to lower, then back up. And this is the highest category for Joe Biden, where he's around 40% in terms of proximity. So when you take a look at this data versus the data over here, I don't know, you can let me know down below. You're an intelligent human being who can use your fucking head. You can see what's going on. right? What people are actually searching for, right? And again, this is just one factor out of the multitude different factors that we've researched. As I mentioned, we're going to do the website ranking tomorrow, which is people who are actually going to each candidate's website. Who has more traffic, right? If you have 40 million people going to your site and I have 3 million going to my website, who do you think is more popular, right? And we do a Twitter ranking, a YouTube channel ranking, which is super fun, as well as an Instagram ranking and a Facebook ranking. So if you want to see those, make sure you press that subscribe button. But first, if you agree with what we're doing here, share this video with somebody. That's how we get this message out. I'm not a giant organization. I don't have all this amount of data that I'm trying to twist. I'm just trying to give you what's available, tell you where I get it, so that you can go look at it for yourself. I think we have enough. If we go back and we take a look at this chart over here, we know where most of the news is on the left-hand side of things. But let's have some more right in the center where everybody gets to see the data on both sides and decide for themselves where to go from there. If you agree with that, share this message with somebody who you think is going to get value from it. Helps the channel out. Even if you don't want to help the channel out, just take the message here and share it with somebody. Share it over on Twitter. Tag me on Twitter. We can have a conversation. Say what's good. Link down below. I appreciate you guys, and I will talk to you soon.